And I shall share screen. And I'll spotlight you for everyone, Julie.
That's great, thank you. I'm actually going to have to, I think, pull up the PowerPoint separately, just because my eyesight's not the May West. So I will kick off here. Everybody, it's great to see so many people here today. My name is Gilly Campbell. I'm the Head of Community Arts and Education at the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. And I'm joined by other colleagues from the Arts Council today, other art form officers, as well as heads of department and colleagues from our communications team and our operations team. And we are delighted and grateful to Conor and Cap, for hosting today's session for us. And I just wanted to say a few things before we kick off, that if anybody has any questions, that you can obviously use the chat function, and in this Zoom session. And in addition to that, if you want to ask us any questions privately, you can send us an email or telephone us after today's session, and we'd be more than happy to sit down and talk through any queries that you may have. If there are any access requirements that anybody may have in terms of font of the application form and guidance notes, do let us know and we can change that. Or if there are access needs in terms of language, we can also support that. So please do get in touch with us after this session if you have any specific access needs, and we'd be more than happy to help you. So we're going to kick off with the next slide. So this is the Minority Ethnic Artists Mentoring and Residency Programme. And as Conor said, we're delighted that we've been able to mainstream this programme and take it really out of the confines of community arts and actually broaden it across the entire Arts Council, so that it's embraced by us as an organisation, by our art form officers, and that minority ethnic artists feel that actually we're placing this in the mainstream of our activity, which is really where it belongs. So today we'll be going through the programme, and as I've mentioned already, in terms of support and advice, today is obviously an opportunity for people to ask questions or queries about the programme. But again, if there's anything specific that you might have that's pertinent to your own particular individual needs, we can address that after this session. And if you are able to access the internet, you'll see that we have a staff list with all the different art form officers who are there. But if you have any particular access needs, if you can email artsgrants@artscouncil-ni.org, and we'll be able to sort that out for you. So next slide, please, Conor. Thank you. So the context for the programme essentially has been informed by the Arts Council's previous intercultural arts strategy, and it's framed within our current 5-year plan, which is Inspire, Connect and Lead. And as I've already said, it really aims to mainstream this programme into our main funding initiatives, and we want to address the numerous and complex barriers experienced by minority ethnic artists in relation to access, progression and representation in the arts in Northern Ireland. Next slide, please.
In progress.
So I think the next slide, that's great, thanks Conor. So this is, I think, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this already, but this is a pilot programme. So we have £50,000, which is relatively a small amount of money, but we've been able to secure it from our lottery funds this year. Obviously, we would hope that we can develop this program and make it a bigger program and increase the amount of funding that we have available. And of course, you know, as it's a pilot program, there'll be an evaluation and process that will happen after the program, and we may obviously tweak it, change it, reflecting on the feedback, particularly from applicants. So the maximum award is up to £5,000. So you can essentially apply for anything up to £5,000. You don't need any partnership funding for this program. So if you do have partnership funding, if you're using your own funds or perhaps in-kind funding, then that's great. But there's no requirement for it for this program. The activity must take place between the 12th of November and the 31st of October. So it's essentially a year. The program can go on for a year. And the reason we mention the 12th of November is that's when we hope to have decisions by. So you can't apply for anything that will take place before decisions are made. And the deadline is 12 noon on the 4th of October. And as I said, we hope to have decisions by the 12th of November. We're trying to turn this around pretty quick. Obviously, when you're looking at your application, it's important to note that there may be changes ahead, obviously, with living through a pandemic. So bear that in mind when you're making your application. And we are working flexibly. So if changes need to be made, once an award has been made, we can look at those changes, just as long as you let us know about it. So the overarching program aims, I'm now going to hand over to Kieran. I think you're going to kick off with this, Kieran.
Thanks, Gilly. Hello, everyone. I'm Kieran Scullion, Head of Music and Opera at the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. As Gilly says, I'm going to take you through some of the objects of the scheme and some of the eligibility areas as well. Within kind of the Arts Council's roster of programs, there are schemes for artists at different stages of their careers, you know, early and emerging, and, you know, tipping point, more established, mid-career. This one is for individual artists and creative practitioners at every stage in their career, whether you're emerging, whether you're tipping point, mid-career, established. This is for you as well. So individual artists, creative practitioners from minority ethnic backgrounds and migrant backgrounds at every stage of their career. So it's quite a unique scheme in that context. The aim is to create opportunities for training and research, cultural exchanges, networking, and learning for individual artists, creative practitioners, and importantly, arts administrators. Okay, so it's not just for individual artists, but it's also for creative practitioners. So it could be any of the tech working behind the scenes. It can be anyone that's involved in the creative ecology and the creative sector in Northern Ireland. Okay, so we want to support workforce skill development and career pathways for artists of all ages from minority ethnic and migrant backgrounds. We want to inspire excellence through the support of high quality, ambitious and innovative imaginative opportunities for artists to collaborate with others. And we want to increase the capacity and opportunities for artists to take professional and creative risks. So applicants are invited to shape a program of support tailored to their own needs. So there's a bit of sort of self-diagnosis in this. It's important that you diagnose where you are in your career, how you feel this award would help you take the next steps. So very much from your own personal perspective, where you would like to go, what mentoring you would like to receive, what would the residencies look like and why, and tell us how that could be, help you fulfill your creative ambitions. So mentoring awards would support a planned program of professional training and development in collaboration with an artist or an arts professional, aimed at developing creative practice through new creative or business skills, expanding knowledge, and developing new networks. We've seen through previous programs how mentoring by organizations or individuals has been a real game changer for artists in developing their careers. We have a similar scheme that's called ACES, Artist Career Enhancement Scheme. And really, you know, it's not a tokenistic mentoring, you know, fill in the box and write down the organization's name. There's an understanding that the organization will help the artists develop their skills, develop their creative, you know, ambitions, and help fulfill those. And so that's really important. And I think, you know, strong applications that come through will have a clear sense of why are you choosing this particular mentor? Why are you choosing this particular organization? And it will be reciprocated. You know, normally it would be a letter of support, you know, or a kind of an understanding between the applicant and the mentoring professional or organization. So the other side of this is residencies. Now, these work particularly well as well. So that's partnering with arts venues or organizations, and may include opportunities to develop and showcase new work. So that's very important, and collaborate with other artists or resident companies, you know, or work on outreach projects, for example. So obviously in the current climate, the virtual potential has opened up, you know, lots of international opportunities. And so your proposal need not be live. It can be digital if that's what you're more comfortable with, if that's what's more practical. It can be live, of course, as well. Just bear in mind, obviously, travel restrictions as they're ongoing, etc. You know, but certainly, you know, we would welcome even a blended approach, as that would open up, you know, opportunities for artists and organisations to work with others outside of Northern Ireland, which is also important. So the next bit, just before I hand over, is a little bit looking at the eligibility. Okay, so who's eligible? Who can apply? So these are individual artists of all artistic disciplines. Okay, so right across the Arts Council's work. All types of working practice, from minority, ethnic and migrant backgrounds, including people in need of international protection. So as I said earlier, it's not just for artists, it's for creative practitioners also, and administrators from minority, ethnic and migrant backgrounds. Art from areas can include the visual arts, craft, public art, theatre, drama and dance, literature, music, opera, traditional arts, community, participatory arts and arts in health. Employees of statutory bodies, including universities, undergraduates and postgraduates, are eligible to apply, but they have to tell us that the proposal isn't related to the academic study, that it sits very much outside the academic area of study. It can enhance it, but it must sit outside it. You need to be living in Northern Ireland to apply, and you need to have made a contribution to artistic activities for a minimum period of 2 years. You need to be at least 18 years old and not in secondary education. And then who can't apply? So applicants who have broken the conditions of any previous Arts Council award in the last 4 years, taken from the date of your letter of offer, and applicants who remain in breach of any previous letter of offer, regardless of the letter of offer date. And now for what you can apply for, I'm going to hand over to Suzanne.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Suzanne Lyle and I'm the Head of Visual Arts. I'm going to talk you through what you can apply for and other sections for just another few minutes to give you a clue about that. So what you can apply for, all sorts of things fall under project assistance. We have art materials and equipment, buying time for your own practice and for creation of new work. Things like fees for training courses, that's not training courses that are education-based ones. I'll maybe circle back to that in a moment, but that would be for something like, oh goodness, I'm thinking in visual terms, but think across your, your own disciplines. It could be training in learning to cut stones if you were a jeweler, or something of that nature. So anything of a short course is fine. Artistic fees for mentors. So when you select your mentor and they've agreed to help, certainly part of that agreement might be how much they would charge for their time, and that's okay to have that. Artistic or technical fees, including those towards production or post-production costs associated with the presentation or exhibition of work. Venue hire, for example, rehearsal space. Technical equipment related to the project and the proposal. Translation costs, documentation costs, and childcare costs as well, to enable you to do what you need to for the project. So I'll hope for next slide there. Thank you. So what we have then, the elements within the grant, you'll need to do a budget. I'll talk more about that in a moment, but within that, certainly travel can be covered. So that would be mileage costs if you're driving, as you'll see in the guidance notes, of 25.7p per mile, as well as any commuting to your place of work during that period, or air travel to deal with one of the elements that you need to. We can also cover subsistence costs of up to £15 a day, and accommodation costs as well. So the subsistence sometimes is confusing for people, but that's the money to enable you when you're away from your usual place of work. That's the money that would support you maybe with meals or sort of minor travel or anything within the day within another place. And accommodation, of course, you would need if you're away. Next slide, please. Let's see. So what you can't apply for is one of the things to think about. Projects would need to take place after the decision date for the programme. So that's, as Gilly has mentioned already, the time we hope to get the decisions to you for the money. So make it happen at the start of it, a little after that. As I've mentioned, it couldn't be for prolonged study or fees at further and higher education centres. Small courses, short courses are fine, but anything that leads to a qualification in the way those prolonged courses wouldn't be eligible for that. Including under and postgraduate fees or fees for study for a professional qualification over some period of time. Work which forms part of your professional or academic employment wouldn't count. It doesn't exclude people who are working in an academic institution or with a statutory body from applying, but you need to be very clear and should get clearance from your organisation on that to say that it's not part of your usual work. Because that's important, that you're not being funded by your organisation for it, as well as funded under a grant. Next slide, please. More of what you cannot apply for. Self-commissioning or self-publishing costs. And to explain that, that's really you going out and, say, publishing, if you're a writer, publishing a version of your latest work yourself and all the costs associated with that. We want to see that being received well by a publisher and going out in that way, where it would have a distribution network, hopefully, of a thing which would, of course, help and benefit your career in that way. You can't apply for translations of literary works or applications to fund or establish websites. That's not so much what this particular scheme is about. Film or media projects, except the production and exhibition of experimental and innovative lens-based work by artists intended for exhibition. So if you're making a fine art film for a gallery, that's fine, but it's not for documentaries or for other things outside that sort of gallery context. Could be projects by digital artists whose work is created exclusively in the digital space. That's something slightly different. So we're happy to talk about that. Particularly that hits the visual artists, so we're happy to talk about that. And if you want advice, get in touch with us and we'll chat it through. Next slide, please. Thank you. You can't apply for projects or commissions already in receipt of ACNI funding. So if you've had funding under SciHap in the last year for something you're continuing, it would need to be a different aspect of that project. I realise people run with themes or with an idea and maybe develop it on from something they've done before, and that's okay. you can do that, but it needs to be a distinctly separate piece of work going forward from this, and obviously the mentoring and or residency is part of this, so it would need to be something different and a progression in your work. You can't apply for residencies or rent of premises at venues already in receipt of Arts Council funding. So for example, the Tyrone Guthrie Centre or funded studio groups would hit for visual. So you can easily find that out from the organisation and ask, do they have a grant for core funding? That's only because we'd be double funding it. In some ways, we'd be funding you to go there as well as funding it to be open. So we kind of be covering it twice. So costs already covered by ACNI, other funders or government COVID schemes, you would need to avoid if that's already been covered in some other way. This needs to be something different. Next slide, please. So in making an application, there are a number of elements to that, mainly the completion of the online application form. And the second element is uploading your mandatory enclosures. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit of that for a moment. There are various main sections on the online application form. There's a project summary with a maximum, I'm stressing that, of 300 words. This is to describe the purpose that you're seeking the funding for, and giving a brief overview of what you plan to do. So that's not a long essay moment, that's just summing up what the project is. And then you have 800 words to talk about your project, and you're addressing the criteria for assessment. And if you would, please do break that up when you're asked the questions for that. If you could put your answers, in that, numbering them in the same way as the criteria are stated in the guidance notes, and there's space for that on the form, so we know what bit you're answering. That would be super. So next slide, please. Within the application, you'll need to refer to any other artists or creative professionals that are involved in your project, aside from your chosen mentor. You should mention that. There's a section called measuring the success of your project, and there's 300 words for that. And it's really how you would measure the success of that project. It's not about outside standards, but what will this project enable you to do? Why is that an advance in your career and your practice for you? And it's so individual an answer on that, but we want to see that you've thought that through and what completing that project will mean for you. Will it be straightforwardly the achievement of the aims and objectives? How will you measure that? Will you take the numbers of how many people see your exhibition, or how many small publications are sold, or what would that be for you? Is it the creation of working through that new body of work? That's okay, creating that new work ready for exhibition or anything else at some point, but what is it for you? You'll also need to give information about the total project budget and the requested amount. So that, our next slide please, would be great for that. So in putting together a budget, this is an area that it's really quite straightforward for people to do okay with, and sometimes people don't score well when they make applications because really they haven't thought it through as well as they could. You need to break it down into each kind of budget heading, and again, this is unique for everybody. You may have or need to buy time to create the work. So, and indeed, if other artists are involved, you'll need to include those things, as well as fees or set costume designer, sound, lighting kind of costs. Any of those elements that come into your project should be listed in your budget as individual elements, with the cost kind of covered beside that. You may need equipment and materials for the creation of the work or the presentation of it. So in visual arts, for example, paints, canvas, framing is fine, plinths, quantity and cost of those needs to be listed. A computer or a camera, it's important you have the itemized costs for those. So it shows professional planning, as well as justifying the money that we could give. It does show good planning, that you've thought this through, you've costed all the elements, and that they are reasonable and good value for money for what you want to do. So you could training, course fees, do provide a quote for that. You sometimes can get that straightforwardly from an internet page. How much would it cost to do the 3-day or the 5-day thing that you really want to do that will advance your skills. Also put in if there are fees for your mentor, and break that down. Don't just put it in as a fee, for example, £1,000. Put that in by number of hours and what they charge per hour, or whatever the appropriate thing is, if it's days or whatever else, but it's likely to be in sort of hour chunks, maybe, that you would see somebody online or in person. Next slide, please. Again, on budget, just circling back to travel, I mentioned that briefly before. The mileage rate is 25.7p if you're driving, but other costs, of course, are possible with that. Could be train, could be bus, could be airplanes, could be anything that you need in order to get to the end of your project and accomplish what you need to. Do give quotes for that if you're saying a flight to London or a bus journey to Derry, Londonderry. Do list what that would be, and you'll get that on websites. They'll tell you how much things are. That's absolutely fine. Venue hire is one of the eligible kind of costs, hourly or daily rate, and the number of days that you would need it for. If you're undertaking a residency, you have the accommodation costs of that. So do list it as the number of days and the cost per day, and you can add your subsistence to that. So if you're paying, for example, £200 a day for your residency, that's okay. And then don't forget your £15 a day to allow for food or other things, unless that's included in the residency fee. But maybe you have other things that you need for subsistence, so you can make your case within that. Next slide, please. There are a number of enclosures that you have to put in with your application. Mandatory, absolutely have to come in with the application. Those must be uploaded before the application is submitted. And for that, you should see page 9 of the guidance notes for further details on those documents. What you will need is your history of artistic practice, which is your CV in so many ways. We mention this quite often, but we used to call them CVs. Everybody's CV, and various points people have said, do you really need to know that I work for a bank or in Tesco to earn some additional money? And we don't. We're absolutely happy to see it's your history of artistic practice. That's what we're really interested in terms of your career development in that way. If you're an arts administrator, absolutely fine to have the jobs listed, as they are and what you've done. We'll welcome the information. We don't mind a full CV from practicing artists, for example, visual artists, who may do other things, of course, to supplement their income. It's absolutely fine. But really what we're looking for is your history of artistic practice. You'll need your detailed project budget. That must be attached. And detailed program of your planned work and or the mentoring activity. That really, really needs to be put in quite some detail to show what you want to do, who will mentor you, why they're valuable to you, and indeed if it's a residency, the same kind of thing, why that particular residency will enable you to develop your practice as you state that you wish to. Any art form appropriate support material should be attached. If you're applying as an arts administrator, though, you don't need to attach that, but for anybody else, it might be images of your work or other things. Please do see pages 10 to 12 of the guidance notes. We'll talk you through that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, if it's a residency, definitely you need the confirmation statement from the host organisation or the venue accepting your residency. That must be put in with the application. And if it's a mentor rather than a residency, you'll need a letter of support from your mentor of choice and a CV for them, so that we can determine that we do agree with you that that person is appropriate and they are of professional kind of background and their work is of quality to be a good and valuable mentor for you in regards to your project. If you're an employee of a statutory body or a university or an undergraduate or postgraduate, you must submit a letter on headed paper from your head of department or supervisor stating that your proposal is not properly part of your work or related to your academic study. This is standard in our funding for SIAP and things. So it's not that you can supplement a degree, with materials and equipment in this way. This is about a different project. You can be doing those things, and this is a separate project, that's okay. You just need proof that your employer, as it were, says that this is something else as well. So thank you very much. I'm going to pass back to Jilly for some more details.
Thanks, Suzanne. Okay, so now we're looking at making an application. Or no, we're looking at addressing the criteria. Are we looking at, which one are we looking at? Making an application, I think. Oh no, sorry, you're right,
Nope,
addressing the criteria.
addressing.
You're quite right. Sorry. Okay, so okay, addressing the criteria. So we assess, so each art form officer will essentially assess the application against the published criteria. So that's broken down into three sub kind of criterion. So there'll be the artistic quality, the ambition and innovation of the proposal, and that would score 10 marks. The proposal itself, and that's where we look at the plans and perhaps your budget, and again that's 10 marks. And then the potential of the proposal. So this is about how the project will impact upon your work, but also your profile and your career. So it's really about how this project will lift you as an artist. Next slide, please. So, so going back to the first criterion, which is artistic quality. So we'll look at your track record, and that's going back to the history of artistic practice that Suzanne mentioned. So we'll look back at what you've done, how you've contributed to the arts, and we'll also look at the quality of your work. So if it's music, the music team might listen to a piece of music. If it's dance, Keelan might watch some moving image of your dance. If it's literature, the literature team will either read your poetry or an extract from a novel that you may have had published. So we will look through your work, and that's where we look at the quality of your work. So we look at the artistic practice and the work that you've submitted. And then moving on to the next sub-criterion, it's the proposal. So we look at the quality of the proposal that you've presented, whether that's the training development opportunity, or we'll look at the mentor that you're wanting to work with, or indeed perhaps we'll look at the residency that you're proposing. So based on the letter that's come from your host organisation. Sounds like somebody's making a cup of tea. I'll have one if one's going. We also look at the planning and budgeting. So we'll look at your project plan and then the budget, which Suzanne's referred to. Next slide, please. And then the third criterion is about the potential of the project. So we're really looking at two things here: skills development and career development in terms of kind of career pathways and trajectory. So we want to see how this project will again lift you in terms of developing new skills, and also about the profile. Will this project increase your profile? Will it actually make a real kind of significant step change in your career? So that's where you will present that information. Next slide, please. So in terms of a checklist, I think the things that we would say to you is obviously ensure that you address and number your criteria. That's what I think you're asked to do in the guidance notes, so that we can see very clearly what you're addressing within the application form. Sometimes we suggest that it might be worth drafting the sections first on a Word document before putting it into the online application. This way you can go through it. You can also ask for help, perhaps get somebody to read it. I always think sometimes it can be hard, particularly for artists, to talk about their work and to sometimes sell themselves. So sometimes get somebody who knows your work, who knows you, who can sit down, read your application and say, do you know what, I think, you know, you should be saying a bit more about the work you did with this organization, or, you know, that film that you produced in that art gallery. I think that should be something you submit. So get somebody who knows you, knows your work, to proofread the application, and to make sure that you are selling yourself. Obviously, make sure you've got time to fill in the application. I know we're all leading increasingly busier lives, but try not to leave this to the last minute so that you kind of go into panic stations. Even if it helps, maybe, you know, write a bit each day, take a section of the day and think, okay, I'm going to spend 10 minutes on the application form. Whatever, you know, is your style will fit you, but do try and give yourself some time. Ensure your budget is well broken down and adds up. If you're anything like me, maths isn't a strong point. So you know, use that Excel spreadsheet so that it can help add things up for you. And as well as the application, of course, make sure you upload all the relevant mandatory enclosures, as the, you know, the clue in the title says, they are mandatory. If things aren't received that are mandatory, it doesn't even get through to the assessment stage. So the officers, the artform officers, won't get to assess the application if your application isn't eligible. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you're successful, you'll get a letter of offer, and we're sending them out through email now, obviously because of the pandemic and doing more digital communication. First of all, look at the date you need to have your letter, your project complete by. That's really key, so that you know, okay, this is how long I've got for my project. And also look at what exactly we've allocated the funds for, because we may not be giving you the full amount that you've asked for, or we might just be giving you a certain amount that you've put in your budget. So just double check that in terms of what we've said we'll be giving you. Fill in your BACS form. So the BACS form is obviously what will enable us to process payment. So there'll be a date in the letter of offer that will say when you have to complete that by. So that's really important. Make sure you fill that in by the date advised. Keep all your receipts. Obviously, if we're paying or allocating funding towards certain expenditure, we will need to see the receipts for that expenditure. So keep all of those receipts and document your work in preparation for your final report. If there are any changes, and there probably will be changes, as I said, we're still living through a pandemic, and you know, we don't always know what's going to be happening next week, let alone in a couple of months' time. So we are very flexible. We're working really flexibly. So we can agree changes, but it just needs to make sure that you send those required or requested changes to your artform officer. If you're unsuccessful, we will provide feedback, and we'll always provide feedback in the letter that you get back following your application, saying why we haven't funded you. But we can also provide more detailed feedback, and also any advice on how perhaps to shape a future application, or if we know of any other funding that we might be offering, or indeed other funders that we think might be able to help you. So if you are unsuccessful, the relationship doesn't end there. It's about trying to establish ways that we can offer further support, and whether that's advice and guidance at this stage of your career, then we can do that. Okay, so I think we're moving to questions now, and I know that we've had some questions coming up through the chat. So perhaps it might be worth looking at the chat questions first, and then answering other questions that have come up. And again, if there's something that you want to ask us privately, then that's absolutely fine. You can contact the relevant artform officer via our contact details, which are on the website, and we can chat to you, or go through email communication to answer any specific queries that you may have. Should we have a quick look then? Now, I also should add that we've got artform officers obviously in the virtual room here. We've also got colleagues from our operations department, and they deal with any eligibility issues. So if I could ask those colleagues to chip in where possible with any eligibility queries or questions that come up, that'd be great. So in terms of the first question that I'm just going back to here. I think, Marina, I think I'd answered your question. You'd asked about buying time. That's completely eligible. If you need to buy time to create work to develop your project, you can cost that in your budget. We have a question here about asking under support costs for participants, for example, respite costs for carers or wheelchair accessible taxis or non-medical support, for example, note taking. Yes, Tess, I mean, obviously, depending on the project, those costs would be entirely reasonable. So yes, they are permissible. Can I apply for writing the 4th draft of a novel while the writing of the 1st draft was supported by the Arts Council in 2019? Well, essentially, this is for projects that are new. However, obviously, this is potentially quite a nuanced question, and it might be better answered by one of my colleagues in the literature department, but unfortunately, due to sickness, we don't have anybody here today from that team. So what I might suggest is that we take down that question and provide you with a fuller answer after this session, whereby we can look at that in a bit more detail, because I know we have said in the guidance notes that it can't be to do with a project that you've had support for previously, but clearly there might be substantial difference in this case. So I think that's something we might just need to address after this session, if that's okay. The residencies can be outside the UK, and how many examples of my work can be included in the application? Is there limited images? Yes, the residencies can be outside of the UK. That's entirely fine. Wherever you feel that you've identified the most appropriate residency for your development is fine. In terms of how many examples of work to be included, I think and I'm going to just ask Ops to confirm this, but I'm pretty sure, is it art form specific in the guidance notes?
Suzanne here. Yeah, with visual, I would say sort of 8 to 10 would be appropriate. I don't have the guidance for that just in front of me, but that's our usual kind of run. So, yeah.
Okay. How would I document a ceramic residency?
Oh, in documenting it, well, you would, in making the application, you would talk about where you were going to be resident and what facilities they offer and why that's valuable to you. So you could take a screenshot or save the document online that would show what the place is like, what it offers. You know, if there's anything specific in that residency, that it's a set up residency as opposed to you arranging a time and residence somewhere. Just give all the details you can of it as per their website, or you know why it's valuable to you as part of the application.
Has that answered your question, Lisa?
Mm-hmm.
No? Do you want to unmute yourself and?
Yeah. I thought we had to document while we were on the residency.
Yeah, that's to kind of help inform your end of project report. So, for example, I mean, you know, it's really to say, don't necessarily leave your end of project report until the very end of the project, where you're then kind of scrambling around trying to write something. Just that it might be more helpful for you as an artist to kind of you know, capture those stages of the residency. And obviously that could be photography, it could be it could be film. It doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, writing something down, but it's more about, I suppose, helping you to shape your end of project report for the end of the award.
So so you don't need the document. It's more for me to remember and to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll have to fill in a form at the end of it to kind of talk about what you did or how it benefited you. So just in terms of keeping a note mentally for yourself or on paper about how, you know, how it has developed. You know, you intended to do this as you started, maybe it evolves, maybe you do the same, as intended. That's absolutely fine. Maybe a couple of photos to show, work in progress and what you came to at the end of it. And that should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For mentoring, how specific should the planned dates be? A period, stroke time frame, or individual provisional dates? I would say you be as specific as you can, but clearly we know that things are more than likely going to change. So that kind of goes back to, if you're awarded a project and you get a letter of offer, just keep in contact with your art form officer so that we know what the changes are. So start off with, if you can, as specific as possible, and clearly those changes might take place. Justin, I have a question regarding eligibility criteria point 2. Thanks. Justin, do you want to unmute and ask that question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Hi.
Yeah, about you say you need a minimum of contribution to artistic for the point 2.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking of for myself. So as someone who was under humanitarian protection for years in Northern Ireland, so I've done a lot of drawing and painting, mainly using watercolor because it was cheap for me to buy watercolor on paper. So I produced some art, painting and portrait and landscape. But at the same time, I was not interacting with, even the Arts Council. I never approached the Arts Council to say, I was just doing the thing in my house because I have more concern to my immigration side. This was my priority. So when I saw this, even yesterday, someone from the migrant center told me about this. Oh, Justin, I said, well, then it would be a good thing for me to apply. Then when I saw the criteria too, I said, no, it doesn't fit my, because I never did any artistic work outside of my own home, of my own comfort. So, and I never engage with any. So how can I pass this? Because this will be for people from my, in the same situation with me, like me, will be faced with this. That's what I think is a barrier.
Okay. No, thanks, Justin, for that. And I think it's a really good point that you've raised. And I think the best way we can handle that is to deal with each applicant as an individual and look at your proposal. And really what you've said here, I would be recommending you articulate in your application so that we can take those significant factors into consideration. I'd also say that, the work that you've created, even though you say you've created it, I suppose outside of a formal setting, that's entirely legitimate work that you can submit in support of your application. So the examples of art that you've created, you can submit with your application, and we will look at that in terms of assessing the quality. So I'm glad that you've raised that point, because I think it is important. We don't want to exclude artists who are clearly working but may have not been working within the traditional constructs that we have in the arts sector. So we would treat each individual as an individual, and I think Suzanne, obviously working from our visual arts side of the team, will look at your application, and if there's additional queries that she may have or that we may have, we can come back to you. But please articulate what you have said here today in your application.
Thank you very much for answer. I think it's encouraging because I was fortunate, to be honest, to be known that today at 10 o'clock, because I only received the information yesterday.
Right, okay.
It was going to take place. So I look at it and I say, what's the point for me to do this if I had, but at least I have my work here, I'm prepared to, because I don't have a professional camera to take nice photo, but I am prepared to take the work and say, and then at the same time, In French, they will say chevronnés, artiste chevronnés. You know, I'm still learning the process
Absolutely.
of painting. So, because, you know, something I learned when I was at uni. So maybe, you know, I need this to make, like you said, to make me move forward to another level.
Absolutely.
So, you know, maybe I'm not the type of person you're looking for, but I understood it through your explanation. So I will maybe, if I'm able to make contact with some of your team and see how I can, you know,
Absolutely.
put down the explanation. And because while we're here, if you don't mind, I'll show you just quickly some of my drawing, if you don't mind, because I hope I don't take too much time. Yeah.
Go
for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
And I hope if there's anybody else who shares that same concern as Justin, I hope that has maybe answered or provide you with some reassurance. I think the best thing to do is just contact us individually, if depending on your art form, if you have any, you know, concerns of that nature, or do chat with us.
This is the latest landscape I'm working on. This is,
Okay.
I hope you see it.
I can't see
Not
this.
focusing. No.
No,
No?
I think it's because of
The
it's
Zoom
not
blurring.
it's yeah,
Yeah, we're not getting it focused.
we're
but
not getting it
sure. Yeah.
focused. Justin, it's probably not the best light in terms of, you know, showing us.
I'll have an extra light I'll use in short. There'll be. Have a light here. I'll see if it can. Do you see something now?
No, it's still blurry.
I think it's because of the
Oh yeah,
oh, I can see that.
one.
Yeah. Oh, it's because you've got the what do you call it? The
Oh,
background thing.
Blurring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No,
No,
that
can
one
see it.
works.
This
That's
is
lovely.
watercolor. This
Yeah.
is the landscape I just finished last week.
Okay.
This is a portrait of a relative.
Yeah.
And this is watercolors.
Good going.
And this is a, you know.
Okay. Well, sure, absolutely. Just to put an application in, and if you need to talk to us, that's absolutely fine.
Thank you. So,
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you for the glimpse.
And I think, you know, you've got Suzanne here, who's the head of visual arts, and she and her team would be more than happy to chat with you about your application.
Yep.
Okay, if we move on to next questions. My focus is ceramics, but I have an art outside ceramics. Should I submit them also? Suzanne?
Unmute. Right, yes, I'm unmuted. Thank you. Just trying to pull up the question there to see what it was. I've lost it.
Lisa's asking, so her focus is on ceramics, but she's asking, should she submit other?
If you are applying with the focus on ceramics, then we'd love to see most of the images relating to your ceramics and the quality of your work to this point. So that would be great if most are there, but if you feel it's important and it's part of your design process, or your other work is relevant, then yes, absolutely put a couple images in. But I would say focus mostly on the ceramics with the images you submit. Thanks.
Masako, I hope that's correct pronunciation. You've asked if you're having if you do more than one art form, should you concentrate on one, or can you ask for both or more than one? I mean, obviously people work differently now, and particularly in terms of multidisciplinary arts practice. And I think really it's entirely up to you which art form that you feel you know, reflects is stronger, or that you need more assistance with, or indeed if you want to do a multi-art form application, you can do that. And then we as art form officers can perhaps you know, work together to make that assessment. So you can leave that concern with us, but if I'm not sure what your art form areas are, but again, if you want to speak with us separately or send us an email, then you can do so. But really, whatever you feel is best represents you as an artist, make that decision yourself. But if we can help you with that, then we will do.
Yeah, Bojana Yankovic had the same sort of query about falling between art forms.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, we can, if you have a multidisciplinary practice and that's what your project is going to be based on, that's entirely fine. And then leave the we can assess it, you know, collaboratively within the Arts Council. That's not an issue. You're struggling to select the art form and relevant supporting documents.
Can I maybe explain? Is it easy?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Hi. So basically, I've apologies for that backlight. I've just moved to Belfast from London, and I am kind of where in Arts Council England doesn't let you choose the art form, so it's the first time that I've had this problem. Basically, they choose it for you basically. And in England, I was combined arts. Always, because I kind of work in performance art, live art, there's a bit of performance arting and often a participatory element to it. And now in COVID times, a lot of it ends up digitally. So now when I'm looking at this application, I am looking at, for example, supporting documents for theatre drama, doesn't fit performance art at all. Supporting, I could provide, I guess, supporting documents for, I think, community and participatory arts in the kind of form of videos or maybe websites for participatory projects, but I'm not sure if that fits with how Arts Council Northern Ireland would conceptualize and think of participation. And so I feel like I'm not a visual artist, definitely not a visual artist. And so it's both about giving my application the best, you know, the best chance, but also learning about how the Arts Council here works.
Okay.
And how, you know, does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does make sense. And Maria, if I don't mind, if you wouldn't mind coming in on this one, I think we have a combined box, do we, for art form?
What we have is a field that says if none of the available art form descriptors fit you, you can simply write in your own. You can kind of put in your own description of how you want to describe. So I couldn't actually say whether we still offer a kind of a drop-down option of combined arts, but certainly if that's what you want to put in the self-selecting field, you're absolutely kind of, you know, free to do that, and it's not a problem.
And then how would that get on the assessment side? Would that then you would internally decide who's best to look at form-wise?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So when the application was received, we would look at your project proposal essentially, and it would be decided, you know, who would be the best fit in terms of an art form assessor, and it could even be across a couple in terms of you know more than one art form assessor might input to it if it needed that. Great.
And just one last question. In the meantime, if I wanted to speak to an art form officer, am I okay to kind of make a judgment based on the project and say, hi, I know it's in between?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, and if you spoke to one initially or you contact one initially, they may, you know, redirect you to another, or they may talk to you and say it might also be helpful for you to talk to this person. Just, you know, just email in and contact us and ask whatever you need to ask, and we'll get in touch.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And presumably the choice of mentor or organization that you want to go to will also give a good clue to how you assess each application.
Yeah, absolutely, Conor. I think that's a good point. Definitely. Next question is from Kate. I think this is one. Okay, would having zines or other forms of experimental publishing as a visual art form that would not be for sale as the outcome of the project be okay, or would that come under self-publishing?
Oh, tricky one. Yes, I think where you're saying it's not, sorry, I'm pulling up the question and unmuting at the same time on an iPad, won't let me do everything. So I think where it's not for sale is sometimes the difference. So I think that's okay as a zine as it is, and that you're saying it's not for sale, which is terrible, because it's not that we don't want somebody to sell their work, it's just the balance of that self-publishing. So usually I would speak to the literature person in the room, but since we don't have that today, I would say as visual, that's fine.
Okay, and Pilar has asked if it's a video installation, can I include the photos and the links for the experimental film?
Yes. the link is welcome. Please just make sure it works, or if it requires a passcode, that you put that in the application. We quite often get them, there's a link, but then when you get there, you've got to put in a code, and they haven't given us the code, so we can't watch it and the application goes. So yes, please, to that.
Okay, and Barb's has said, can our mentor be based outside of Northern Ireland? Yes, Barb's, your mentor can be based anywhere. It's really down to who you've identified as being important to you in terms of developing your practice. So that's absolutely fine. Juanita has similar concerns to Justin, so she was glad that he raised that. Some general questions. Can the word limit guidelines be shared with us? I didn't see those on the published guidelines.
Well, can I just jump in here, Gilly?
Yeah.
Although we don't actually kind of specify, because we don't obviously replicate the entire application, you know, in the guidance notes. And so we kind of don't, hence we don't, you know, talk about the individual kind of word counts, but in the application form, the word count, where there is one, will always be stated in the information just above the field. And also the actual boxes that you're inputting to, they actually have a kind of a word count limit and a little word counter. So as you kind of input, you know, you'll see the kind of words, the word count go up, and it'll just stop you inputting, you know, once you kind of reach the limit of the word count.
Thank you. And then the next question there is, for new projects, can we refer to drafts, non-published or funded, just personal practice, as Justin mentioned, that has been worked on in preparation for this project? Yes, if you've got a new piece of work that you're wanting to develop, yes, you can submit drafts or sections of drafts for that. That's no problem. Can it be a combination of mentorship and residency? Absolutely. That if that's your proposal, that's no problem at all. And I think we probably might get more than a couple of applications suggesting to do that too, because whatever you identify as being the most important thing for your practice is important. What about interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary projects working across visual?
You've answered that.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. I'm just going through these. Can we discuss specifics of our projects beyond the 24th tomorrow? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I was asking that because I saw on the guidelines that it said to contact you by the 24th. Tomorrow's the 24th. So I'm like, how do I put that in? So yes, so just email.
Yes. Send us an email and we will get back to you. So absolutely. So the deadline of the applications, I think, is the 4th of October. So yes, anything from today that you want to chat through with us or ask any more questions, we can certainly we can do that. No problem at all.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Fiona, could you please describe a few examples of different types of residencies? Also, are there set hourly rates for buying artists time to develop work? Okay, well, types of residencies, it might be, and obviously this is different for different art forms, but I think when we talk about mainstreaming practice, I mean, what I've had a couple of meetings with, well, not meetings, but chats with various arts organizations and saying, look, you know, we want to see more minority ethnic artists being represented, programmed, commissioned, you know, really changing your programming and seeing that representation. So, for example, Fiona, it might be that a playwright might want to have a residency with a theatre company, professional theatre company based in Northern Ireland. For example, Prime Cut, or indeed the Lyric. And I know the Lyric have Jimmy Fay has said that, you know, he'd be very willing to be contacted if there's anybody who wants to look at having a residency at the Lyric. And so it will be with organisations. I think what whilst we have said this can be outside of Northern Ireland, I think what's really key is we really want to see organisations in Northern Ireland too providing that support, because it's only once we see professional arts organisations in Northern Ireland, you know, working with minority ethnic artists, that we can really then start to see the kind of transformation of programming and see more artists being represented in programming, whether it's being commissioned or having their work produced. So I hope that gives an example of the type of residency, but I don't want to be prescriptive either, because some people may have a very clear idea of what they think a residency is. But I think a residency is about an organisation investing in that particular individual and saying, right, what can we do to help you develop your practice and help you create work? So I don't want to be too prescriptive, but I hope that's given a bit of an idea of what it could be. Also, are there set hourly rates for buying artists time to develop work? Well, we always come up against this because each art form, many art forms have different industry rates. So really, we would suggest that you work within your industry rates. And music will have different from ITC. So you know, depending what the art form area is, look at your industry rates. And again, if you want to chat that through with a specific art form officer, you can do that. I hope that's answered your question, Fiona. Okay, so Justin says I may need support to complete my application, especially the cost part. Is this something? That's fine. I think, Justin, if you want to send an email to the arts grants, if somebody can remind me what that email is again, so I get it right, we can try and provide you or link you up with somebody who isn't the assessor, but link you up with somebody who can help you with that. I know, you know, we've got a couple of organisations here today, like CAP. We've got Theatre and Dance NI, and I think we might have Visual Arts.
You've got me, so
yeah.
I will happily put you in touch with one of the team, the visual team, Patricia Lavery, and happily help.
Perfect. I mean, that's, you know, if you want somebody internally to help you, or if you want to have the resources and support of one of our funded organisations to help you with that, they can also help you too, Justin. So just let us know in an email what it is you need help with, and we'll give you a steer from there. Okay, Aoife has asked, following up on some of the questions from our freelancers, what would qualify someone as a mentor, or is this up to I think that's up to the individual artist, Aoife. I think, again, we don't want to be prescriptive about saying who's a mentor and who isn't. I mean, you know, that's really, I think, down to the individual artist and who they've identified, who you think would be somebody who you can learn from, who can help you strengthen and develop your career. So yeah, absolutely, that would be, we do ask for a CV, but that's so that we can see, you know, that they have experience in the area that, you know, you're saying they have experience in. But yeah, we're not going to be prescriptive about who can be a mentor and who can't. I hope that's okay, Aoife. What is arts in health? Any example? Is it Pradnya? I hope I've pronounced that right.
Yes, yes.
Hi. Well,
Hi.
I work in the arts and health area, so it might be with one of our arts organisations that work in arts and health, perhaps Open Arts or Arts Care, or it could be with an individual mentor that maybe you would want to potentially have a residency with Arts Care, and depending on the particular art form area that you want to work in, they could offer or they could host you. If you want to, I mean, I'd be happy to follow this up with you at a later stage if you want, and we can, if you need any particular contacts or you know, if there are people that you want me to help you get in contact with, I can do that. Depending, I mean, you may already know, and I don't want to make any assumptions, but I'd be happy to chat to you about that at a later date if you want to email me.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Isn't the Lyric considering a venue receiving? Okay, no. So the Lyric, they don't already. What we meant about the residency thing was that the Tyrone Guthrie Centre receives funding already to offer residencies, whereas the Lyric obviously receives annual funding from the Arts Council, but it doesn't receive funding for residencies. So you can work with them. So my suggestion to you would be to make contact with either Jimmy Fay or Rebecca Mayers at the Lyric to see what opportunities they might be able to offer you.
Thanks, Julie.
No problem. Okay. Oh, thanks. You put the arts grants at artscouncil-ni. We're more than happy to have the presentation shared with everybody who's here. So I know Conor will be able to share that with you for everybody who's attended, and anybody who hasn't attended but wants a copy, that's fine too. Justin has asked, can the cost include subscription to an online tutorial in the cost? Yes, it can. Justin, again, it goes back to the kind of looking at short courses or courses that will help you develop. So that's no problem at all. So if you're putting that in your budget, just make sure that you have put in the details of the cost, you know, the provider of the course, and details on that, and then we can look at that. So that's no problem at all. Is that all the questions on the chat? Are there any? Have I missed any on the chat?
No, I think you've done well with them, Julie. I've been monitoring them too, so I think that's
good.
main.
Thank you. Are there any questions that people want to ask?
There was one more there, sorry, from Lisa McCabe asking if her application was up to 10,000 and she knows that the limit is 5. So I suppose there's room within the budgeting to show the full cost of the program and what you're applying for, isn't there?
Yeah, so if Lisa, if I've understood this correct, are you saying that your total project might be £10,000, but you'd be applying to us for 5,000? That's absolutely fine. Obviously, the cap on our budgets is 5,000. So if you were seeking just 5,000 from us, it would need to be, or if the project was just 5,000, it needs to be. Oh no, the online application says this.
Is it about word count? Not sure.
Maria, are you
No, when I was reading it, and it said the funding goes up to, £10,000
oh.
but I know the limit is only 5.
Yeah.
Now, are you absolutely sure that because we currently we have a creative industries program that's just been opened, it's opened and closed, that was for £10,000. But listen, absolutely, we'll double check. We'll absolutely kind of double check.
Lisa, thanks for raising that potential issue. So we'll double check that. And
Can I ask about following on that? Because I saw those, I was looking at both of those actually. And so can you apply for both or
you can
for different things?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're 2 separate funding programs.
Okay.
And as long as they're separate projects. So you need to ensure that you'll be aware that we also have the I don't know what is it, creative, sorry, yes, yes, they have to be separate projects. So it's absolutely fine for you to apply to both as long as the projects are entirely separate.
So again, following that, it's because I'm working across various areas, and so it was, and there's specific budgets, and they do interact, and so 2 parts here. One is, so with this one, I was wondering about their different mentors. So like, do I put that in for the different areas and specify, like, if there's a bigger, broader budget beyond the 5, I'm just asking for 5 for this thing, but here's the bigger picture, and then it connects with this other application. Am I making sense?
I think so. The other application shouldn't be a supplement to this. It would need to be a very different thing. Yeah.
Well, it's like, an album is a standalone, right?
Yes. Okay.
And the music from that album comes into a theater production.
Oh, okay.
That kind of thing. So they're very, very specific in terms of the budget and all of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Yes, so there's obviously going to be links between the work that you create, because you're the artist, and it's always going to have an intrinsic link. We need to be very clear about them being two separate programs, and obviously they both are fundamentally have different aims and objectives. So clearly this program today is that we're talking about is really about mentorship and residency, and then the other funding program is I just want to be clear, because I know we have a number of programs open. Are we talking about the individual emergency program that's opened up? Yeah. Okay, so that's clearly entirely kind of COVID related, and it's about you know, sustaining practice. So I think Juanita, what might be it'd be worth perhaps just exploring this in a bit more detail, I think, after this session, just so we can be really clear on it. But I think in principle, I think it's absolutely fine. I think we just need to maybe chat about it a bit more, if that's okay.
Yes, please, because I do have you know, people who I want to work with and who want to work with me on these different things. So it's just a case of how do I pace it and place it.
Yeah, well, we'll try and make sure that we can help you so that we can do both those things.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so Masako has said, how do you find out about these fundings from you? Yes, it's all on our website, Masako, and this one I learned from word of mouth. Okay, I think, yeah, we put this on our website. I have to say it was done very quickly. We wanted to ensure that we could fit this program in the midst of lots of new emergency funding programs that have kind of taken over everything. So essentially we released it very quickly. We have put it, I think, in our newsletter, and I think we shared it on social media. But yes, the details are on our website, the guidance notes and the application form, the online application form.
You can always check any time of year. You can dip into the website and look under the funding category at the top, and then funding for individual artists or organizations. And we do have a regular newsletter that will mention new schemes. So number of ways to see that. And
I'd also say that you can sign up to the CAP weekly and indeed the monthly. It's a free subscription service, and it'll give opportunities, events, funding in your area, and right across the north as well, and sometimes even further afield. And that's a free service, Masako. So if you want to do that. There was just one other thing, Gillia, I was perhaps wanting to say to everyone in terms of this is a pilot program. You have 50K allocated to support this new program. If everybody here today were to make application to the maximum, we'd be looking at about £170,000 of funding. So there are going to be people disappointed. But what I would say strategically to everybody is that to make sure that they get applications in, because it will show demand.
Absolutely.
We need to see this area funded. We have been working a long time. And for those that don't know, that the Programme for Intercultural Arts Support that the Arts Council supported CAP to implement and provide, it's been finished now for 5 years. And so there has been a hiatus, but it's great to see this coming back. So I would urge everybody, definitely, it's good advocacy for this sector. It's good advocacy for minority ethnic arts in general to make application here just to show the demand. And again, if CAP can be of assistance to applicants, given our expertise in this area and our track record in this area, and there are other organizations online here today, I say Beyond Skin for one. I know that Arts Sector are here and others too. Contact those organizations because they will be able to give you a steer.
Thanks, Conor. I'm really glad you said that, because I mean, it is critical that we are able to evidence the demand for this program. And as I said, yeah, this is a pilot program. and one that we would hope to be able to continue to deliver on an annual basis with a much bigger budget. So yes, it is a small pot this time round, and as Conor has said, if everybody here who's here just today made an application for 5k, we're not going to be able to support everybody, but we want to be able to have that evidence and that demonstration of need that we need to increase the budget and find additional funds to be able to offer this programme again and keep it mainstreamed within the Arts Council's suite of funding programmes for individual artists. And thank you, Conor, as well for the offer of help for anybody who needs support, and I would really encourage anybody here who does need support to go to CAP, or indeed to any other organisations that are here today, whether it's Theatre and Dance NI, Arts Etka, Beyond Skin, because these are organisations which you know are there to support you. There's expertise there and a wealth and breadth of experience across all of the art form areas. Thank you, Niamh. Niamh's chipped in there, Director of Theatre and Dance NI, who has very kindly said she's willing to help artists too. So thank you very much, Niamh. And Darren, thank you, Darren.
Can I just say a final thing, Julie?
Yeah.
Just thank you very much to Lisa and Min, who picked up that line in the application form. The online application forms are sort of templates that we amend every time for different schemes. The last time that one was used was for a different scheme, which did have a maximum of 10,000. And you're absolutely right. There's still a line in there saying the maximum award is £10,000, which we will now remove. So thank you very much for highlighting that. But it is as per the guidance notes, it's £5,000.
Lisa, you have won today's spot prize.
You have absolutely won a prize today.
And
yes.
You have won it. We want to see who would notice it. So well done. Thank you. Thank you for that, Lisa, and thanks, Maria, for having a look at that and getting that sorted.
Suzanne here, can I just pick up on one question that whizzed by from Pilar? Yep. Do we need to speak about the place that we're doing the residency in our application? Yes, you do. You need to provide some information with it. If you don't want to put it in the word count, but you know, you could attach more information about it, hopefully as a document. But give us a clue, give us a website, tell us why you want to go there and why it would benefit you. So yes, you do need to tell us something in the application and give us the information on it. So yes, please. Thanks.
And Juanita said there about the word limit on the form. It helps to know there's an advance. That those word limits are, correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, they're in the application form. Is that correct? The online application form? The word limits, I think they are. And yes.
Sorry, I was just on mute there. Yes, they absolutely are. Yes.
Yeah, they're there, Juanita. So when you go into the application form, the word limits are there. And yes, we will. Conor's very kindly said that he will provide the slides from today to anybody here, and we can also, I think, our comms. Just checking, Leanne, we can maybe put something up too.
The word limits are in the slides that I'll be sending out to everybody.
Right.
So people can, you know, do their Word document.
No, but thank you. Is it all right?
They actually commit to putting it, uploading it. And Sophie Hill from the Crescent was also saying that they're happy to support applicants or indeed those seeking mentorships or residencies. I'm sure this goes right across the board. There are lots of organizations that aren't here today that I'm sure would welcome an approach from applicants here. So, you know, find one locally, find one that you have maybe some relationship with. Definitely look for one that's in your arts disciplinary area as well. And of course, there are festivals which are multi-art. And they're represented here today as well. So I think you'll have no difficulty in finding a host organization right across the region.
Yeah, thanks, Conor. Look, I'm conscious this time is this we're coming up to the end here at 12 o'clock. But I do want to let people know that, you know, if there's please do. What's really encouraged me today is, of course, there are people on here that I know and I've met before, but there's an awful lot of people here that I know we haven't met before and we haven't had engagement with, and that's, I think, really promising, because it's exactly, you know, those who are new to the Arts Council we want to see coming in. I have this kind of mantra in my kind of working life, and I kind of, you know, often say to members of my team, it's great that we meet with our clients, but I want to meet with people we don't know. This is what we're here to do, is to meet and connect and engage with people that we don't know yet, and this is a great way of getting to know you. So please do continue this conversation with the relevant art form officer. And again, I'm just going to say, if you go onto our website, you can see a staff list there of all of the art form teams. And just to say that Damien Smith, who is in literature, is currently off work, but he's some of his days are being covered by Paul McVeigh. So his details are on there. So there will be somebody in literature who'll be able to support you. And Keelan, who wasn't here today, I know she'll be able to support you, but additionally, if you want to speak with somebody from Theatre and Dance and I know they'll be able to help you. So, you know, please do reach out to us, because we are here to support you, and to ensure that this programme really does become a mainstream programme of the Arts Council. Okay.
Okay. With that, I think thank you very much to all the arts officers and the arts team from Arts Council. Great to see some faces I haven't seen in quite a while. As you said, Gilly, it's lovely to see new faces as well. Some old faces there that are looking fresh and well too, thankfully, and that we're navigating this craziness, and we'll continue to, because we know this is a resilient sector. For those of you who are wanting to come into this sector, it is great. There's great camaraderie. There are lots of fantastic people, and we're always looking to help people come on board and really get creative and connect people in communities and professionals in arts practice. So have a look at ruminate, reflect, contact people, and best of luck with your applications. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
All the best. Bye-bye.